Will millions really be evicted from their homes, or will it go back and forth from here? The real issue here is that we have massive levels of inflation on real goods that people can't deal with right now on top of everything else. Already, the vast majority of individuals are living paycheck to paycheck, so having extra high prices at this time only puts further pressure on their finances. What will be done about it? You came here for the truth, so let me unveil that for you. Today, we are going to look at what's been happening, of course, with this eviction ban. I'm going to cover the details, and we're going to look at it on 4 different levels, okay? Because you can see what's been happening in the news, and obviously, this is a very troublesome period for a lot of people. But there are 4 levels, and here I like to cover the economic aspects. Of course, there's the political aspect, and there's all these sort of different ways to look at any subject. But of course, here I like to cover the economy. I like to see what's going on these particular levels, which we'll cover today. I want to look at what JP Morgan had to say about inflation as we see prices rising in virtually every single category. So let's get into that right away. While the mainstream media is telling you that everything is A-OK, I like to bring you the statistics that actually show the truth. Now, I wanted to bring this to you, the United States ADP employment change, which is showing some positive progress. I like to bring that to you, but we, of course, cannot obscure the data. You could see that private businesses in the US hired 742,000 workers in 2021, which is the fastest pace since September. So this is positive. This is good. But you can look around and see that there are always pockets. Some people are benefiting from the situation. Some people are getting government stimulus. Some people have business as usual. And certain sectors are being hit hard. Look, when oil went down into actually the negative territory, any area that was focused around oil really suffered for a long period of time. So today we are now seeing conditions that are certainly changing. Oil prices are rising. Those areas are certainly doing better. But what happens with all that? We are seeing an inflationary push. And that, of course, is never good if it's sustained. That might be good for those in the oil industry, as an example. If you are exporting copper, that might be good for your country. If you are manufacturing something that is in high demand, maybe you're making lumber right now, of course you're raking it in, but we have to look at this on all of the different levels. So let's look further into the eviction ban specifically. All right, here we have it. Out of CNBC, federal judge overturns national eviction ban. I'm sure you have already read about this, but if not, I'm just going to cover a quick few points, then we're going to look at on the other levels. You could see that right here, we have millions of Americans at risk of losing their homes. Housing advocates have said that the national ban is necessary to stave off an unprecedented displacement of Americans, which could worsen the current situation, the crisis that people are facing today, just as the country is turning a corner. So there is somewhat of a rebound in certain sectors and certain aspects, but of course, if you've got millions of people living on the streets, this is a situation that will affect the economy. But as they say here, property owners have criticized the policy and say landlords can't afford to continue housing people for free. So there are 4 different ways that we need to look at this. You've got the individual, the renter, of course. That's one we need to focus on. Then you look at who actually owns the property. Well, that is a landlord. That particular landlord most likely has a mortgage on that property. So we have the lender, and the lender, let's say the bank, also will have to be funding what's happening here, the situation. And then on top of this, we have the government itself. And the government in this case is bailing out each and every level of this. So there is an expansion of the debt and the deficits, which of course is something that cannot be permanently sustained. So we have to be very careful and tiptoe into what's really happening. All right, further down in this article, you could see that the CDC had banned most evictions across the country since September. The protection was slated to expire at the end of January. It was extended first until April and then later through June. The big news, however, is that some 1 in 5 renters across the country are struggling to keep up with their payments, and states are scrambling to disperse more than, check this out, $45 billion in rental assistance allocated by Congress. So of course, this is a situation that hopefully will be resolved, but it's been going on for over a year now, and it doesn't seem like it's ending anytime soon. Some 1 in 5 renters, you know that people are living paycheck to paycheck right now, and I'm sure that the numbers are actually a lot worse. Some people, it's business as usual. That's for sure. But you look at what people are dealing with today, and you know that a lot of them are simply just hoping that things return to normal, but here we are. Right here at the bottom, they just say that the spokesman for the Department of Justice said to plan to appeal the ruling, and it seeks a stay of the decision, meaning that the ban would remain in effect throughout the court battle, and most likely that is the case, but who knows? Maybe this will be done in piecemeal. Certain areas will have the ban lifted and certain areas will not, and states will fight that, and who knows? I will definitely cover this for you, but understand that this has an economic effect, but there are 4 levels to it all. Rent crisis spirals for landlords awaiting $47 billion in relief. Property owners are in danger of losing buildings or being forced to sell to wealthy investors. Because we have to understand here, if it's a small business, if just a person that has one condo, let's say, and they're renting it to somebody else, but that person has been unable to pay, that person eventually sells it, and they sell it to a bigger business generally. That bigger business may not be as kind to that person, and so we have to be very careful what we wish for in this case. Here, I think that the situation could be a lot worse for some people as a result of all of this. And you could see right here, quote, "I don't want to lose my house, so I'm doing whatever I have to do." The people, of course, are just basically hanging on by a thread at this point. They do talk about what's happening here. I don't want to harp on the situation, but I think people need to be aware that the landlords in the situation are going to be affected as well. Now, most people, I think, if they're in the situation, they're not necessarily going to be shedding a tear for the landlords, but the banks, of course, if they're not getting paid, that they are going to start to have to default. They're going to have problems with their situation. And what does that mean? A cascading effect like we saw during the financial crisis. There could be more layoffs. All of this could absolutely happen as a result of this. Now, on top of all of what we are seeing, you have this massive level of inflation, and you could see the Bloomberg Commodity Index going sky high. This is just showing you from March into May, and it has simply taken off. It's not just lumber, but of course, you could see that it has accelerated for sure. I'll show you a chart on that in just a second. Bloomberg Commodity Index going back from 2015 up until the present, looking at levels we haven't seen in a long time. The Canadian dollar has risen against the US dollar to levels we haven't seen since 2017. So of course, the US dollar has been in flux along with these other currencies, and some of them have been able to gain some traction. This one, though, was really shocking because I've been following the price, but never saw these two compared together. And it is going to happen. It's very clear that lumber will be more valuable than gold. And that's when you know that things are certainly out of whack today. This happened back in 2004, but the prices were trading, in line with each other. But as we moved into that inflationary period in the 2000s, gold started to surge as it, entered this bull market. Lumber had been trading within that range for decades and decades, and now things are really, really getting out of whack, and lumber happens to be one extreme example. I'm sure you've been following what's happening with real estate. Check this one out. San Francisco, the East Bay real estate market is so hot. Houses are selling for more than $1 million over the asking price. It doesn't get any crazier than that. I mean, I haven't seen $1 million, maybe one or two examples, but this is ridiculous. It is unbelievable to see how much the prices have accelerated in such a short period of time. Of course, there's inflation everywhere you look practically. And most importantly, the inflation can be seen in your real groceries that you are buying on a daily basis. Check out this article here. It's just one example. Your grocery list could be eating away at your budget without you noticing. Oh, I think you will notice it. I think you will when you go and you buy a bag of groceries and somehow, you would usually only need a 20 to buy that bag of groceries. Now you're turning to 30 and you're going to 40 and you got to think to yourself, what the heck is going on? That's the most simple way to do it. Maybe, if you're always buying eggs or something, if you're always buying the lettuce, if you're always used to buying these same things year after year after year, you kind of get a sense of where things have gone. And let me assure you right now, in the recent past, they have accelerated dramatically. They do tell you that prices year over year have gone absolutely berserk. I don't think anybody is denying that, except for a few people, which I think is strange. I mean, depending on where you live, of course. Nearly everything at the store, this particular individual, the situation they give you here, it's from beef to cereal to fruits and veggies, cost more than it did a year ago. At the end of the total, it was when you're like, holy cow, $200 for all of this. The average prices in March 2021 for pork chops and chicken breasts are up more than 10% compared with March 2020. And I would like to see actually comparing to 2019, because already by March 2020, things were looking a bit sketchy by then. Eggs and cheddar cheese are both up 6%. Doesn't matter where you look, the prices have accelerated. And if you see the official level of government inflation, that never adds up. And the reason I talked about that in yesterday, the cost of living adjustment, they're using values that are not accurate for you as the individual. So if you are depending on a fixed income, you're in big trouble. I'm going to link to that article, that video at the end of this one here. So definitely stay tuned for that. All right. And then we have this. Some businesses have found that they can't afford to wait for the temporary increase to pass, and that means consumers can expect to deal with higher costs for a range of daily items, including garbage bags and children's clothes. Everything. That means everything is going to go up. They give you some examples here. Colgate-Palmolive CEO, straight price increases will continue to be an important element as we look at the back half of the year. We're going to do it. We're going to increase prices. I anticipate that you'll see more price increases across the sector given the headwinds that everyone has faced in the space. Absolutely. They're going to do it. Higher cotton prices from Chinese producers are pushing clothes maker Carter's Inc. to consider how much of the increase it can pass along. They want to push it to the absolute maximum to ensure that they're getting the maximized profits. And you know that that is going to be the case. They have to do this because if they lose out on their corporate profits, they have one other option, that's fire people. Maybe they'll do both. And then we have this. The national debt subject to the limit now stands at $28 trillion. $28 trillion, and this is a result of all of the spending, the deficits, the debt. They're all increasing today. So we have this on all levels increasing, making the situation definitely worse. And that brings me to my favorite part of the video, the GPS or the money GPS insights. A lot of people have said they like this. I'm going to continue to do it. Let's cover the basics here. Millions may be evicted right now, but regardless, inflation is soaring. Inflation is soaring and the debt and the deficits are rising. So you've got this trifecta situation, which is never a good thing. But I would suggest to you, if you want solutions, of course, everybody wants to know, what do I gotta do, GPS? Well, buy what you need today. If you think that you're gonna need that in 6 months from now, if you think you're gonna need that in a year from now, if you can buy it today, you lock in the price. if it's something that will store for a period of time without losing its potency or efficiency or whatever it might be, it's not going to go stale, why not buy it today? It's effectively like getting a discount. They're telling you right now, Colgate-Palmolive is telling you those prices are going up. Could you keep a bunch of extra soap? Could you keep a bunch of extra products that they sell that perhaps you buy on your shelf in your storage area of your house? And that would effectively give you that discount, 6%, 10%, 20%, whatever it's going to be. Buying it today locks in that price. That's real key. And of course, always, if you have the money to invest, you want to convert fiat into real assets. Fiat currency is losing its value. We can relate the US dollar to the Canadian dollar and sure, whatever, but converting fiat into real assets is generally the way that you would hedge against inflation. And JP Morgan right here, this particular individual, the head quant, I might mess up the name here, Kolanovic, warns most money managers are at risk of inflation shock. This is big, coming out of JP Morgan, by the way. Strategist says that many haven't experienced an inflationary regime. They simply haven't had to deal with it in their entire career. Money managers who spent the bulk of their careers profiting from deflationary trends need to quickly switch gears or risk an inflation shock to their portfolios. Many of today's investment managers have never experienced a rise in yields, commodities, value stocks, or inflation in any meaningful way. A significant shift of allocations towards growth, ESG, and low volatility styles over the past decade, all which have had a negative correlation to inflation, left most portfolios vulnerable. This is coming from somebody who is certainly on the inside, so pay attention. I don't have time to cover this, but you definitely want to check it out if you have the time. And you know what? Maybe I can do an entire video about this, but basically just breaking it down a little bit further. If you have the moment, definitely look at the link in the description. I will keep this here. It's the Business Insider link. Definitely check that out. I had more things to cover. There's just not enough time. If you found the video informative, you've got to give me a thumbs up. That really supports me. And if you want to get around all of the censorship, if you want the video to actually be delivered to you, because I know a lot of people, they do not get, even though they're subscribed, and many of them have been unsubscribed, even though they click the bell, they still do not get the video in their suggestions. So you definitely want to sign up for the Insiders. I will email it to you directly. Anybody who signs up the Insiders will get an email from me directly. I believe it's 5 days a week I'll be doing that, and you can get that directly to your inbox. And that is something that you can get on. I think it's very important right now. I've procrastinated on that for so long, and now I'm just getting on it. I'm just doing it. All right. If you want to learn about the financial system, top to bottom, you get my 2 books in the link in the description. And this one right here is the one I was talking about earlier. You have to watch this video if you haven't already. Click it right there, and I'll see you there.